California, Southern California area voted for the bond measure to bring water from Colorado River. Massive effort and well done by the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. A couple of other things that happened. There was another flood in 1938. And that flood kind of, as you see this period, you can tell that there's a period of time when we have floods in Southern California. We need to deal with this. Population of the San Gabriel Valley is now starting to reach into the hundreds of thousands of people. You can't have floods coming in and wiping out all of this infrastructure every few years. So because of the floods of 1938, we had some things that occurred, and you saw Santa Fe Dam, Whittier Narrows Dam were established in the San Gabriel Valley. Also the lining of the channels in 1938. And that helped protect us from the floods that you see listed here, of which we had many over the course of the years. The other thing that was happening in terms of infrastructure in Southern California at the time was the massive freeways. So now people not only had mass transit in some ways, they also had the ability now they were transitioning into freeways. And so people were starting to move outside of the city of Los Angeles even further. So population is encouraged in the San Gabriel Valley. There's a couple of pictures of that 1938 flood. This picture on the left is along the San Gabriel River. And as I recall, that was somewhere up right around Azusa. And you can see it's wiping out one of the roads there and some of the power lines that are along there. The second one on the right is the San Gabriel River as well, and that's a railroad bridge that's being wiped out. The western portion of that bridge is completely wiped out and needed to be completely rebuilt. This picture on the left is another picture from the 38 floods. Now that's, I'm not 100% sure because the picture didn't have a description, but I'm trying to place this. I think that's El Monte High School Stadium right there in 1938. There's a grandstand right there. And I think that's the El Monte downtown or near the area of El Monte, which is 1938 also happens to be the year my dad graduated from high school there at El Monte. The one on the right, the picture is actually from Monrovia. And I think that is Route 66 coming across the center here, and I think that's 5th right there. Massive flooding. Now remember, these pictures were taken after the flood. They couldn't get out and take pictures during the flood. They took them after the flood, so massive damage. So again, recap. Early 1900s, we've got these crops that are now 50% of the land is crops, 50% of it's is still virgin land, mostly citrus, deciduous trees, still scattered towns in the early 1900s. 1930s, we're starting to see a little more development. Big change, though, in the valley is that our channels are being lined because of flood control problems. So we're starting to see the channels. We're starting to see our cities are growing a little bit farther, and you're starting to see wells now going down into the aquifer at greater repetition. And so we're pulling more and more water from the San Gabriel Basin. 1945, of course, the war ends. A lot of industry was created in Southern California as a result of the war. Some of that in the San Gabriel Basin. A lot of the people who worked on the war effort lived and worked locally here in the San Gabriel Basin. But 1945 ended one war, but it started another. From 1945 to 1950, there was massive post-war growth. If you were around during that period of time, down in the Central Basin, the areas of Pico Rivera all the way down to Linwood and down to Lakewood and towards Long Beach, there were a lot of dairies prior to 1945 that occupied that area down there. But real estate developers were buying up the land, putting in houses, because all these people coming back from the war, these men and women who had fought in the war, wanted to live in Southern California. They didn't want to go back to North Dakota and Minnesota and Illinois. They wanted to live in Southern California. So we saw this massive growth in Southern California that happened to be mostly starting down in the Central and West Basins. And so all of these dairies, they picked up and they left, and they went out to the Chino Basin. Well, that left then the land available for development. And so we're starting to see now other parts of Los Angeles really growing quickly. And that area of Los Angeles was growing faster than the San Gabriel. Well, this created a really interesting dynamic. So in 1947, the West Basin Municipal Water District, which is the area along the coast, became organized, and they formed their own municipal water district in 1947. You remember, the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California had just built the Colorado River project. Water was now flowing into Southern California, but in order to get access to that water, you had to be a municipal water district. Cities couldn't join. As a matter of fact, the city of Pomona tried to join the Metropolitan Water District and were denied. So, in 1950, Pomona got together with its neighboring communities and formed the Pomona Valley Municipal Water District, which is now today called Three Valleys Municipal Water District. That was a fairly amicable, that was an easy formation of a municipal water district because the city of Pomona had always been kind of looking to the future. Pomona kind of stands out as an area in the San Gabriel Valley as an area that kind of got it first. And Pomona was very organized, and when they said we want to become part of Metropolitan Water District, they found a way. And the way was by forming the Pomona Valley Municipal Water District, which we now call Three Valleys today. 1952, the Central Basin Municipal Water District. So everything south of Whittier Narrows now is organized and has access to Metropolitan Water District water. Guess who doesn't? The San Gabriel Basin. There's a good reason why San Gabriel Basin is really following and hasn't gone out and become a part of the Metropolitan Water District yet. Kind of explain it this way. This is a cross-section that shows the area from the mountains down through Whittier Narrows. So now here it is, 1950s, and we've got this area. We've got Cogswell Dam, San Gabriel Dam, Morris Dam. You've got the basin with this giant bathtub I was explaining to you, where we're able to get water. Well, water flowing out of that system, out of the mountains, was coming into the San Gabriel Valley, and we had this spreading corporation that was spreading that water. So guess what? Water was plentiful. In the San Gabriel Basin, we had the first call on water. All that water was going down into the ground. Well, guess who wasn't getting it? The Central Basin down here was not getting it. So guess what happens? They're pumping water out of their groundwater basin, and water was not being replenished. So their groundwater basin is starting to sink. And it's becoming dangerously low, as a matter of fact, to the point where people like Long Beach are starting to suck in salt water. So what happens? The water wars. Now, in 1880, you had guys like Dalton standing by his ditch with a shotgun. Well, today, instead of the shotgun, you've got your attorney sitting right next to you. And that's what happened in the 1940s. Lawsuits were filed. People were all of a sudden finding out that they had to get their foot in the door in order to establish these rights. And so the people in the Central and West Basin were putting a tremendous amount of pressure on the San Gabriel Basin to become organized, because we were taking water that really was, in all rights, belonged partly to the people in the Central and West Basin. So the solution? We had to create something in the San Gabriel Valley that would allow us to be able to become organized and get an outside source of water to replenish the basin, not just take water off of the river. Now, in the San Gabriel Valley, it wasn't quite as amicable as it was over in Pomona. There were 4 cities. There was Azusa, Sierra Madre, Monterey Park, and Alhambra. Now, I don't know exactly what they were thinking, but my guess is, in what I've heard, it was mainly personalities. These 4 cities and the city fathers from those communities didn't get along with other people who were involved with the creation of the Metropolitan Water District, and they wanted no part of the Metropolitan Water District. So they were withholding their approval of wanting to become a municipal water district. Well, the people in the Central West Basin became very, very nervous, and they filed a judgment. Today they call that the Long Beach Judgment. They filed a lawsuit, basically trying to force the people of the San Gabriel Valley to come up with a solution to organize in order to bring in replenishment water. So the solution was the 4 cities decided to become their own municipal water district. That is referred to today as the San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District, made up of those 4 cities. Some of the representatives and board members are here today. The rest of the cities in the San Gabriel Valley, except West Covina, I see Mike Toohey over here. West Covina has always been kind of a rogue. West Covina said, we're just going to kind of hold our powder dry, and we're going to wait until see what happens. So in 1959, both the San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District and the Upper San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District formed. One as a Metropolitan Water District agency in order to get access to Colorado River water. The other one, to become a state water contractor. Now, there was one problem with becoming a state water contractor in 1959, 1960. State water contractor didn't exist. So those 4 cities were rolling the dice. They were trying to find a way of getting imported water into the San Gabriel Valley, but they were really relying on an election that was going to be held in 1960. And it was the Burns-Foster Act of election in 1960. It was a bond measure that was being put before the voters to build the state water project. Now, that was the project that brought water from Oroville all the way down to Southern California and fed the San Joaquin Valley all the way down to Southern California. But the vote didn't occur until November of 1960. As you can see, they formed in 1959. Rolling the dice. They figured that it was going to pass. Well, in this case, they turned out to be right. But it only passed by less than 1% margin. So they got a little lucky. The water wars between Northern California and Southern California were just as difficult in 1960 as they are today. And that measure barely passed and gave them an outlet, and eventually they were able to bring, in 1975, where they actually delivered their first bucket of water into the San Gabriel Basin. The municipal waters, the Upper San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District, started their activities in 1960. They formed in 1959 and started operations in 1960 and started developing water into the San Gabriel Valley as a part of their mission. In the early 1960s, there's a place up in the San Gabriel Canyon. If you go up towards Morris Dam, you can see a little pipe. It's not so little when you get close to it. But a pipe, USG-3, comes out of the wall there and delivers water into the San Gabriel Basin. And so early in 1960s, water started to be developed. So here's a map that shows those boundaries of those areas that were developed. First of all, on the right, on the east end of the basin, you got 3 valleys. The area in red here was the Pomona Valley Municipal Water District, but they changed the 3 valleys because that's a little more descriptive. Because the area they represent actually covers 3 valleys: the Pomona Valley, San Gabriel Valley, and Walnut Valley. 3 valleys. So that's how it became 3 Valleys Municipal Water District. The gold areas are the 4 cities. Sierra Madre, Azusa, Monterey Park, and Alhambra are separate. And you can see they're not contiguous. They're just 4 cities that decided they didn't want to be a part of what everybody else was doing. And I can tell you today, those 2 municipal water districts work really well together. And it's kind of nice to have both a state water contractor and a municipal water district representing Metropolitan Water District both in the same basin. That provides us multiple options when we talk about bringing replenished water into the San Gabriel Basin. So although in 1960 it was a roll of the dice, it was a difficult decision to make, people were not happy, the bottom line is that it's actually a very good thing. So the second issue that we had to deal with here in the San Gabriel Valley in the 1950s, a really important issue, had to be dealt with, and that was the allocation of water and flow. Now remember, people in the Central West Basin were really upset because water wasn't flowing through the San Gabriel River, down into through Whittier Narrows and down into their area. So the end result was, because of this lawsuit that was filed by the City of Los Angeles and Cerritos, a joint suit along with Central Basin, is they ended up with a settlement, a judgment, that said that a certain amount of water had to make its way through, on a yearly basis, make its way through the Narrows into the Central and West Basin. Now that decision and that judgment, that was a stipulated judgment, was not easily come by. As a matter of fact, if you go back and you read the records, a delegation of directors from the upper district, from the association, and people from the Central Basin, including Long Beach, they decided they were going to get together in a motel, and they sequestered themselves in a motel for 1 week without attorneys. And they spent time in this motel for 1 week and worked out an agreement, a skeleton of an agreement, and then turned it to their attorneys. And it took 3 years after they were given this skeleton of an agreement, 3 years to finally get this agreement done. But they finally got it done, and that created the river, San Gabriel River Water Master, which essentially governs the amount of water that goes between the two basins. You keep track of it. There was a third problem, because now we had a situation where people couldn't just pump unlimited amounts of water in the San Gabriel Basin. there was a limit.